We've gone over a lot. We've been doing this for 30 minutes, and we've gone over a ton of things that are signs and symptoms that we should be looking for. And I want you to know that by the time that we notice these signs and symptoms, many times it's too late for these residents. We have to recognize and make hydration something is preventative, not something reactive to these signs and symptoms. We want to prevent all of those, because the truth is this is something that creates a morbidity and mortality. And I don't have the exact numbers, but it's 50% of the people that have a hospital admission that were under Medicare will die within 1 year if they were put into a hospital for dehydration. So I'm not going to say there's never an excuse for dehydration, because that's not true. There's so much going on physiologically, but there's so much we can do to prevent it. The minimum fluid needs to prevent dehydration. This is really interesting stuff. If you look at the daily requirements just for our intestinal tract, we need 125 cc's of fluid. Breathing takes up 335 milliliters. Our lungs, when we talked about earlier, how much fluid do we need? 500. The skin, 500. So just think, if you have a loss, let's talk about open skin areas, whether it's pressure ulcers, skin tears, wounds, incisions, anything where there's a loss of fluid from the skin, 500 cc's. That's for normal skin. That's not with the other wounds. And our kidneys, 1,375 milliliters. And this is pretty profound numbers when we think about how much fluid we need to be encouraging people to take. So, fluid intakes includes all fluids consumed. So that's all the fluids on meal trays, or all the fluid in your daily meal. This is fluids given during a med pass and fluids consumed during activities. We're going to talk about activities in this for a minute, but I'm going to ask, and I don't think I said I was going to do it here, but I'm going to ask if we can switch over and look at these cups for a minute. I see in front of me 5 different cups. Hope I counted right. Yes, I did. You'd think I was drinking. We have 5 cups here. And I want you to know that every one of these cups can be used when we pass meds, or when we give fluids for breakfast, lunch, dinner, for our different times of the day that we are providing fluids during our fluid rounds. And we have our folks who are recording how much fluid somebody's receiving. I would ask you if you know how much fluid would go into each of those cups. It is suggested in best practices that every cup you have in your facility, whether it's a coffee cup, a fluid cup, a medicine cup, whatever, that you have a picture of it and that you put up how many ounces are in a full cup. And I think that's a great best practice, because I think even for myself, it's only when I buy the bottles of, I guess you're not allowed to use names because I have no one, but I buy the pre-bottled water, and whether it's 8 ounces or 16 ounces is how I keep track of how much fluid, and without that I couldn't tell you. But just ask your staff, and this would be an interesting experiment to do, is to take those cups, line them up, know how many ounces are in them, and just ask people to guess and see, and have a prize for whoever wins that knows exactly, because most of us don't. And I would say without those measures to bring it back to our attention, to be looking at and putting up that picture, how are we measuring intake and output? So thanks. All right. What is the effect of food on hydration? Well, this is really interesting, because when you think about the foods we eat, how much water is there? And I have lists and lists of the amount of fluid in different types of things. And this is why we work so closely with our dietitians to help us in planning meals, because they know how much fluid is there, how much protein, carbohydrates. But I want you to look at this, that lettuce is 96% water. Asparagus, 92%. This is a great point to make. It's kind of a conflicting point, but I want to tell you that when you think about asparagus, and I'm looking at this, and we talk about urine concentration, do we know what foods discolor urine? Asparagus happens to be a food that does discolor urine. And so you might see a darker brown or greenish colored urine if somebody's eaten a lot of asparagus, or even a little bit of asparagus. And so you can't always use the concentration unless you know what people are eating as well. We're going to talk a little bit more about the effect of food on hydration, but I really hope you'll look at and have knowledge about how much people, when they eat, for intake and output, that we're putting down what they eat. Because it's not always, if everybody ate only lettuce, they may not be getting much nutritional value if it was an iceberg lettuce, but they sure did get a lot of fluid. All right.
Música